everybody. It's Monday. I'm Jim Williams along with Amedeus Mastrangelo. I apologize. I messed your name. Mastrangelo. And, Amedeus, we were talking in the pre-show. It could very well be the final Tom Brady show that we see here from last night. And if that's the way it goes, unfortunately, that's tough, but it is what it is, and we can't really do much more about that.
Yeah, it was a disappointing game. There was no points for Brady and the Bucks for like an entire half of the game, and you know what? The guy who auctioned off that football last year, honestly, that might still be the football worth some money because barely got any touchdown passes from Brady last night to auction off if that really is going to be his last game. But I don't know. He claims he still wants to play. The Bucks desperately want to keep him still, even though he's going to be a free agent. So who knows what's going to happen with him next year.
Well, I mean, one thing, when you get to the point where you are at, be sure to subscribe, hit the bell, and share. The thing that concerns me is that during the offseason of any NFL season, most NFL teams, 25% of the roster turns over. Okay. Brady's contracts have all been, with the Buccaneers, have all been backloaded so that it's club friendly and allows him, meaning Brady, to de facto general manage his way into getting other players on there. There's been a lot of talk of maybe he'll go to Vegas, maybe he'll go to Los Angeles, maybe he'll go, who knows, right? I don't see Brady spent 3 years in Tampa. Okay, I don't see any upside. If he's going to play another year, and that's entirely up to him and the Buccaneers. If he's going to play another year, to leave Tampa to go for 1 year to someplace else makes literally no sense to me. It just doesn't make a damn bit of sense. And I'll tell you what. Interestingly enough, we talked about Josh McDaniels, who's in Vegas now, right? Josh McDaniels would likely rather have, crazy as it sounds, Jimmy Garoppolo running his offense than Brady at this point. Why? Because he can get 3 years out of Jimmy Garoppolo. He's not going to get 3 years out of him.
Yeah, well, don't tell Tom that.
No, well, last night what we saw was a ghost playing quarterback. Okay. One time, I've been lucky enough to be around a lot of athletes, many of whom were fantastic in their day, some of whom were great journeyman players. They lunch bucket guys, the guys who just grab they punch in every week and play at their sport. And I asked Charles Barkley once when he knew it was time to retire, and Chuck gave me a typical Chuck answer, which is 2 years after I should have. And that kind of is the mentality of all athletes in general, but specifically those who are great. People forget that Johnny Unitas finished his career with the San Diego Chargers, that Joe Montana finished his time with the Chiefs, and Joe Namath with the 49ers and the Rams. And, there are a lot of these guys who just literally can't stop. And, you're hoping, there was an article in the Tampa Bay Times this morning talking about, this bad season that the Buccaneers had, and that, it would tarnish, quote unquote, the legacy of Tom Brady. Look, one season doesn't tarnish the legacy of anybody. However, if he were to leave and go and play somewhere else and stink the joint up, then people would, look at Brett Favre. he had to prove the Green Bay Packers wrong. Well, he didn't. He proved that he was, a good quarterback in Green Bay, sucked in Minneapolis, So, and New York for a brief period of time he was there. But, you just, you hate to see it happen. There's an end to every story, and Tom's story ended, or should have ended last night. To be honest, if it ended last season when he, said that he was not coming back, his last pass would have been a touchdown. The last time he handed the ball off would have been a touchdown to Leonard Fournette, which tied a game against the Rams. Okay, so you cannot go out. They didn't win. Okay, so that would have been the best of all possible scenarios, but you can't always get that. That would have been a pretty darn good ending to a career. A year after you won a Super Bowl. Okay, so now he's 2 years out from winning a Super Bowl. Had his first season of not winning, and all of a sudden it's like maybe I want to come back for another year. Well, maybe, and I'm quite sure the Glazers will be happy to have him, but to what end? He's not going to be able to keep that whole gang together, and we'll see. But to be continued, as the saying goes.
Yeah, well, the Glazers are all about making bad decisions. You can ask Sean about that one.
Yeah, it's true. Although, in fairness, they haven't really not spent money in the Buccaneers situation. They've spent money. They've attempted to bring in good coaches. They've Jason Light, who's the general manager now, he's a fine general manager. I don't think anybody would argue that. So, yeah, but. They're right now worried about getting $7.3 billion for Manchester United, which is a pretty good deal.
Yeah.
Let's fly real quick through the football, and then we'll get over to our, to the soccer. Something happened to this. The game between the Chargers and the Chargers and the Jacksonville Jaguars defied belief. I mean, it just absolutely defied belief. That first half, Lawrence looked like he couldn't hit the broadside of the barn. Forgot what colored uniforms that he played against.
We're the colors today, not the whites.
And then, to your wonderful point, Coach Peterson decides, no, we'll figure this out. And with a lot of help from the Chargers, when a ball when you're having a good day is when you punt the ball and it bounces off the head of the receiving team. Hits some square on the top of the bell of that. And you're like, you're kidding. And so Trevor Lawrence throws 4 touchdowns in the second half. They win the game on the last play. And you got to believe that's the longest flight back to Los Angeles from Jacksonville that the Chargers would ever have. And you have to wonder if the Spanos would have rather just given them bus tickets and sent them back. That was, you blow a 27-point lead. That's crazy.
It's interesting because I look at that game and I go, I wonder what Doug Peterson said to the team at halftime to make them what could they have done to turn that game around. But
Right.
Then I watched the game last night and you have Eli and Peyton Manning blow the lid off the halftime adjustment, claiming that that's the biggest lie in NFL, the halftime adjustment. And
Right.
Peyton, quote unquote, says, yeah, you got no time at halftime. You go in there, use the restroom, have an orange slice, and then you're back on the field. So, now it makes me think, what really does get done at halftime?
No, to tell you what Peyton said, what you do, you only have 12 minutes in halftime. Okay? And it takes a couple of minutes to get off the field and back on the field. Normally, what will happen is if you go to your position coaches. Okay, it's not like the coach stands up there and gives some sort of the head coach stands up and gives some sort of edict about this. Your position coaches quickly pull you aside and say, okay, look, we've been doing this all day. Let's start to get this work on this process, blah blah blah, real quick. He's got 5 minutes to give us to talk. So usually it's a breakout between that because, as you say, guys are grabbing something to drink. There might be somebody, depending on the let's say if it's a warm game, a warm day or something, somebody might be quickly getting an IV to get some fluids back in them. So there's a lot of things going on. Okay, so yeah, Peyton's blowing the lid off the myth of what they do.
I couldn't believe it. I was like, these guys are just exposing the secrets. Because then Eli said another thing later in the game about how Daniel Jones contacted him and was like, "What? Anything I need to know? Right? It's the game. I hear the game is faster. Is the game faster?" And Eli goes, "That's just something people say. The game doesn't speed up because it's the playoffs. It's the same game that happens. Just guys are going to play harder, so you got to play harder."
Well, I mean, like any business, right? Okay. Like any business, it doesn't matter where we're talking about, football now or whatever. When you get to an elite level, you have to make decisions, and you have to make them quickly. Okay. And whether it's a business person or a quarterback or a point guard or whatever, the quicker you can think of what to do, the better off you're going to be. And so is pro football fast? Of course it's fast. It's a collision sport. So you may not have time to go through 4 reads. You may just be able to go through 2. But you have to make those decisions. And that's where Peyton Manning, and to a lesser degree Eli, was successful at making those quick decisions, right? So yeah, there's a lot of fantasy that comes to these sports where people feel like there's some sort of Newt Rockne type speech that is given that inspires people to do something they're getting paid for. I don't know, but all of the games, with the exception, of course, of the San Francisco game, where Brock Purdy keeps continuing to build a legend for himself, and in the Buccaneers game, we're close. And I got to say, I was very surprised that Miami put up such a good fight against a very talented Buffalo team.
You know what? I wasn't that surprised. I know it's Skylar Thompson was obviously starting, which made it very in the air. But yeah, that was one I thought where Buffalo had struggled with Miami all year, and they had struggled against division opponents in general.
Right.
Like a lot of their games against the Jets and the Patriots were 1-score games. So that was one where you just looked at it. I stayed off the game because I was unsure. Buffalo has the motivation of DeMar Hamlin driving their team, obviously, and then you have the 3rd-string quarterback for Miami. But something inside me just looked at that and was like, 13.5 is too much for these divisional teams. Like, that's not going to happen.
Well, I think if you look at Skylar had the 2 best wide receivers in football on his side. And I think what they did in the first half was give him confidence by giving him a game plan that wasn't above, his pay grade. And they dumbed down the offense, and they said, look, just get the ball to Tyreek Hill, get the ball to Waddle, and let them do something with it.
They make the money. You let them. They're your playmakers.
They're your playmakers. Put the ball in their hands, and you're going to be okay.
Exactly. Let them make the plays.
Let them make the plays. We'll, just get the ball in their hands. And they came up with some creative ideas on how to get the ball in guys' hands, and it paid off. I mean, I don't think anybody thought that going into halftime that Miami would either be tied or even down by 3 at half. I mean, that's just not going to happen.
Especially when it was 17-0. I had all my Bills friends in my ear like, oh, you're not going to see no comeback in this game like the Jags. And then before we knew it, it was 17-7 at halftime.
Right. And it's like, wait a minute, that's exactly like the Jags.
Yeah, and everybody was like, what's happening to the Bills? Oh, the Dolphins aren't that bad.
Well, yeah, there's that. But at the same time, what happened was the Dolphins took advantage of crazy. And, they had some balls that just bounced their way. That pick, toward the end of second quarter was huge.
I think you got to give some credit to the coaching too. Like obviously, Mike McDaniel, it's his first season, but he's going to turn out to be a good coach because
right.
Obviously, guys, he came from the Kyle Shanahan offense, and we know Kyle Shanahan's a guy that obviously can plug any quarterback in, and the offense just keeps moving. So that's what we saw there, basically, just Kyle Shanahan 2.0, and that was the guy who was running the offense in San Francisco, pretty much. So,
and he reminds me of an English professor. He doesn't look like a football coach.
I love listening to him talk. He's actually so funny.
He's very bright, incredibly articulate. But he speaks at a level and a tone that's so soft and so, it's not coach-like in any way, shape, or form. It's academic. I mean, it's like he comes up there and says, well, as we look through the first half, these are a few of the things that we wanted to get straight. And you're thinking, like, shouldn't he have a board behind him, and letting him and writing this stuff out, because clearly – the guy, is teaching as he goes along. And I'm just thinking like, wow, this is pretty cool.
Yeah, and when he's not doing that, he's just dipping you in sarcasm with some of his responses. It's actually hilarious. I love the guy.
He's got a very dry sense of humor, but it's a sense of humor that we all enjoy. And we got some guys here in the house. Hey, good to see you. Welcome on a Monday. And what's up? Not much at the moment, but we'll get to it in a sec. Putting a button on it, we've got Dallas and San Francisco. Used to be rivals. Used to be back in the day. That was a pretty rivalry because the two teams were constantly in the 90s facing each other for NFC championship titles. Chief among them, the great catch that Dwight Clark made on a Joe Montana pass to send them to a Super Bowl. You've got Buffalo playing against a talented team from why am I blanking on Buffalo? Buffalo this week plays against Cincinnati plays Kansas City, right?
No, Cincinnati plays Buffalo.
All right, Cincinnati plays. They're okay. So since it's Cincinnati, Buffalo, it's Kansas City and the Jacksonville. So that should be interesting. You got, as we said, Dallas going to San Francisco, and you got the Giants traveling all the way down the I-95, about 80 miles to play against Philadelphia.
Going to have the power of Eli Manning in that building.
Yeah.
He said he'd never step foot in Philadelphia again, but that he said he just might have to break the rule for next week.
Well, he lives in New Jersey, so I don't think it's that tough to get there.
Not a far drive at all.
No, he just takes his easy pass and goes down the turnpike, to Philly. And the stadium, by the way, is not that far away from 95, so he doesn't even have to worry about that.
Yeah, actually, I know a lot of people in Jersey who like to drive down. They're more inclined to go watch a Phillies baseball game or something in Philadelphia, because I guess New York's just a mess to go to.
Well, you have to cross a bridge to get there, and that's not fun.
Always traffic, always just backed up.
And then when you get across that bridge, you have to decide: am I going to the Bronx or am I going out on the island? Of course, then again, they also have mass transit, so they can go via train and get there one way or the other. So, that's but going down to Philly is a lot more fun than going up and seeing the Jets and the Giants or seeing the Mets or the Yankees or whatever basketball team you might be into.
Yeah.
So there's that. All right, well, let's talk a little soccer. Over the weekend, there were some pretty good games. I know that Sean, who, by the way, is on assignment today, enjoyed the derby. It was quite entertaining.
Yeah, he might have enjoyed it. Me, I was sitting there, pulling my hair out for 70 minutes. That was such a boring game. I mean, credit to Sean's team. Man United got the job done in the last 10 minutes, but Man, oh man, I wish I could get my morning back on that day, because at least the Arsenal Tottenham had some early action in it.
It did, yeah.
And then Tottenham almost looked like they were going to score a goal in the second half when they came out, but they ended up not doing it. But yeah, Arsenal looks like the real deal. I don't know what else to say about them.
Well, they win 2-0 over Tottenham. Chelsea got the win over Crystal Palace. Newcastle beat Fulham.
Barely.
Brentford beat Brentford. It was a day pretty much where the favorites rolled. Southampton and Nottingham drew. Wolves beat Leicester. We know Man U beat West Ham. Man City lost to Villa. So, there were some upsets, I guess. Although, would you really call the Villa beating Leeds an upset?
No, they were actually, I think they were favored in that game. So, yeah, Aston Villa, I mean, they're playing better as of late. I would say that they're starting to turn things around. I mean, honestly, EMMY Martinez played a hell of a game in that one. Some of the saves he made were unbelievable, and he was probably the reason for he was definitely the reason why they were able to hold on to the lead in that one.
Well, and then we've got the French League 1, and they had some massive scores from a standpoint of goals scored. Then a 7-1, a 5-2. I mean, it's like baseball scores in the league this weekend.
Yeah, I was on Monaco in that game, 7-1. It was unbelievable. It was like it was 2-3-0, 20 minutes in.
How do you score that? Man, that scored a lot. Strasbourg and Marseille, that was a good game. I saw that one.
Yeah, I like this Marseille team because they were just kicked out of Champions League, and they have a really good team. They just I guess didn't play well enough in the Champions League. But now that they have nothing to focus on, I think you're going to see them start surging. Like Lens, for example, who's ahead of them. Lens kind of bothers me. They won 1-0 against Auxerre on the weekend, but they scored the one goal on a penalty pretty late in the match.
Yeah.
And then 5 minutes later, Auxerre got a red card. And instead of trying to double the lead, Lens just sat on it. They didn't try to score another goal. They barely took any shots for the rest of the match, and they just tried to hold up possession. I get Auxerre is one of the worst teams in France, but if you try to do that against a better team, I've seen teams score with red cards. I've seen them score multiple goals with red cards. So it can be a game killer, but it's depending on the team. So I don't like the way Lens did that. They could have went out and won that game 3-0 after the red card. They didn't have to just shell up like that. And that's a style that just bothers me a lot.
There used to be a lot of teams in the Italian league that played that kind of.
Don't even get me started on the Italian league.
That's
how the Italian team plays, and that's why we missed the last World Cup.
I mean, you beat me too. I was about to say, there was a time when a 0-0 draw for Team Italy was hey, we're happy with that. We don't care. We'll take it. We get the point. Which is true, you do. But you also don't expand and figure out how to score goals, because eventually you're going to have to do that.
Yeah, that's the problem. For years, I've heard my parents just complain about how the Italian team plays. And, honestly, that's really what kept them out of the last World Cup. Because if you look at that game, they lost into North Macedonia in the qualifiers. Right. They were 0-0 for 70, 80 minutes, and they let Macedonia score a late goal, and they couldn't come back from that, because by then it's oh my god, we have 10 minutes just to tie it now and force extra time. You can't play like that. And that's a great example. Italy thought, oh, it's North Macedonia, we can drag this out. No, you can't drag it out. Okay, you can't do that. It's a style of play that bothers me, because I've had to watch it for years from my team.
Back when Chinaglia played in the NASL, and then he became a broadcaster later. Once I was talking to Hudson and Ray Hudson and Canalia, and Canalia said, look, and this I thought was fascinating, because it takes more energy to play defense to make sure somebody else doesn't score than it does to create offense. And he said he hated playing for the national team because they never wanted to go forward. They always wanted to stay at the midfield, control the midfield, and that's all we need to do. You know, let the defense play defense, but control the midfield. Make sure basically that we don't move the ball forward, but they don't move the ball backwards. And it's like, okay, it's kind of a screwed up sense of logic, but it was something that they just preached. And it didn't seem to be any coach who didn't buy into that.
Yeah. And, I love that statement that you just said, that how it takes more effort to play defense. If you don't believe that that's true, then just go watch an NBA game, because on a nightly basis, you don't watch anybody play defense, especially on back-to-backs, because it takes more effort to play defense.
Well, I mean, if you look at some of a guy like a Michael Jordan or a Larry Bird, or some of these, or for that matter, guys who were defensive specialists like Rodman, right? Back in the day, those guys, they worked really hard because that was the thing was, you're not going to get past me. Okay. Look at, we just talked about the NFL. Look at how those defensive backs and linebackers, how much ground they have to cover just to make sure you don't get a play done. And remembering that wide receivers know where they're going and defensive backs don't. You got to anticipate where that ball's going.
Yeah, you got to chase a guy 80 yards, and even then you might not even get the ball thrown your way, and it's just right back to the next play.
Right. You're sucking wind coming back from 20 yards, 30 yards downfield, and you're going like, okay, what's next?
Yeah, but if you don't put that effort in, then all of a sudden it's broken coverage and the guy's running for an 80-yard touchdown.
Right, and you're looking up going, okay, wait a minute, is that my guy? Is that your guy? Whose guy is that?
Yeah, that's why
same thing in hockey.
Yeah, no, absolutely. That's why I think in the NBA, you could score 140 points a night. It doesn't mean anything. Once you get to the playoffs, the teams that are going to win are the ones that, sit down and put the effort in to play defense.
Right. And really just make it, because nobody likes, especially in the NBA, nobody likes to be, have somebody in their face all the time. And because that requires the skill to get around them, or the ability to pass around them. And, again, that's not stressed enough. And as you say, it's the teams who can play defense that usually end up winning titles. That's why Greg Popovich was such a good coach, with San Antonio.
Yeah, when you can stay with a team 27 years, doing something right.
Yeah, and in fairness, Steve Kerr, who, by the way, wasn't a great defensive player when he played, but stresses defense in Golden State, and doesn't hurt to have Steph Curry around, but they can do it both. Play both ways. Now, is this the week the Bundesliga is coming back or no?
On the 20th. So
they sent out invitations.
I guess that's what the Friday it starts.
I think so. I think it's the 20th, right?
Yeah, the 20th. So
that would be Friday.
Yeah, so there you go. Friday, finally. The 2-month wait is over for German League. If you've been waiting the last 2 months.
Right. If you wonder what happened to soccer in Germany, it's coming back on Friday.
If you're wondering why you haven't seen Bayern Munich in a while, just hold on tight. It's coming. They're coming.
Yeah, they don't even have having a good World Cup as an excuse.
Yeah, honestly, it's embarrassing. It's just embarrassing because you're right. Like half of Bayern Munich is the German national team, and like they got kicked out in the group stage. So you've had short of 2 months of rest. Like it's just embarrassing the way their league runs, honestly, because everybody else took that World Cup break and was like, okay, obviously players have to go play in the World Cup, but not everybody's going to the final. Not everybody's playing the entire month, right? So this is our month off. But Germany was like, we always take January off. we're taking it again. We don't care. We're having the World Cup month off too. We're taking January too.
Well, you and I remember when we were talking about it that literally on the Wednesday after the Cup final on Sunday, okay, Paris Saint-Germain was playing on Wednesday. Now, Mbappe nor Messi were playing, but they were playing, and then they played again on that Saturday. So there you go. Hey, it's Bill McDonald. Good morning, Bill.
Morning, Bill. Yeah, speaking of PSG, they're supposed to be playing the Saudi All-Stars this Thursday.
This is for you, Mr. Amedeus.
What are the plays, Bill? You know, I'm thinking Real Sociedad -1 in the Copa del Rey. It's gone up a bit already. It was -188 earlier this morning when I looked at it. Now it's -200. But Sociedad, I honestly think, is probably the best team in La Liga minus Real Madrid and Barcelona. Obviously, we're not going to get them, but you can actually. This is how good Real Madrid and Barcelona is. A lot of books give you an option to bet the La Liga winner, excluding those two teams, because they know. So yeah, honestly, Real Sociedad would be my bet, because I think they're probably the third best team in the league by far. Ever since coming back from the break, they've won all 5 of their matches, Cup and League, and their defense is incredible. They can score goals. I love the squad. Mallorca, they're not a bad team, but they're on the road here. They haven't been playing great. They only have 1 win since coming back from the break. I think they've played 4 matches now. I think Sociedad wins this one. I would take the -1 at worst to get the push, but I think that's probably the safest bet on the board today.
What are you looking at? No problem, Bill. That's what we're here for. What do you let's ask Bill. Bill, who are you looking at today? Did you have any thoughts other than what Amedeus was talking about?
Yeah, let us know. I'll give you my thoughts.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously, there's the Wolves.
Let us, everybody out there, let us know what you are thinking about.
Exactly.
You want to see.
Now, obviously, there's the FA Cup, and there's the Wolves Liverpool replay, which I'm interested in watching. I don't know what I want to bet here, though, because the Wolves won that last match. So the fact that they got to even replay here, I don't know where their head's going to be at. They're probably thinking, I know Lopetegui's definitely thinking, we beat this team last time. And that might be what he's telling his team. You guys beat them at Anfield, okay? I want you to know that. VAR be damned. You guys won that game. So go out there and do it again at home this time. So
do the same thing you did on this time. You're on the home pitch.
Yeah.
Who surprised? I shouldn't say surprised me. Impressed me, I guess would be a better way of putting it. Brighton this weekend. I did not think that. I mean, I thought they could win. I didn't think they could dominate.
Yeah, I was contemplating between giving out the over and Brighton in that one, and at the last second I talked myself off the Brighton double chance and went with the over 3, but I ended up pushing with it. But yeah, Brighton, honestly, so they didn't start Darwin Nunez. They went with Salah and the Cody Gakpo, their new acquisition. And then obviously Oxlade-Chamberlain on the left, who's arguably been their best player since coming back from the break somehow. But so I think Darwin Nunez will probably get a start today because he was rested in that one. But Liverpool, me and Sean have been talking about all year. Something's wrong with this team. We had the one guy come in the comments one time about this is a team that's out of form. This is not a team that's out of form. Man City is a team that's out of form right now. This is a team that's spiraling out of control, Liverpool. And, unless they make some impact sign, they need a replacement for Sadio Mane. They need a playmaker who can get the ball on Nunez and Salah's foot, because they're struggling to create chances for themselves. That's the fact of the matter. They don't create space or chances.
Well, the game that, against Brighton, at least from my observation, is that I don't think they had a clue what was going on. I mean, they basically would start something and not finish it. And you're like, okay, you built 3 passes in a row. You passed, it looks like you got something going. and then oops, maybe not so much. It's like, but that was something that I didn't see out of out of Brighton. Was they were very methodical in what they did. They did not, it wasn't fancy. It wasn't flairish. It wasn't in any way, shape, or form, spectacular. But it was workmanlike. They played as a team where, Liverpool didn't. So, and you can do that. You can do that if you have the talent. Liverpool can't. They don't have the talent.
I think another thing is they played aggressively, and that was something teams have been afraid to press Liverpool in the past, but now they don't look so scary anymore.
Right.
And teams are pressing them more, and they don't know what to do because they're used to holding onto the ball for 80% of the match. But now they're struggling to keep possession, and they can't get themselves going. They can't get a flow to their attack. So, and you know what? If I'm Graham Potter right now, I'm sitting there at Chelsea like, wow, I left this Brighton team for this, and now I'm going to be sitting here, might be jobless by the end of the year.
Looking up at them.
Yeah, because he might be jobless at the end of the year. Right. Who knows what Todd Bowley is going to do? I wouldn't fire him personally because you haven't done anything to help me with the team. Signing Mudryk and Joao Felix and all these other players that you can get your hands on just to keep them away from other teams doesn't do anything if it's not going to help my team. No. So I can't blame Potter for anything, really. You stole him from Brighton and threw him into this absolute mess right after Chelsea had lost in Croatia to Dynamo Zagreb. So, I don't know what you want from him, right? He's got a lot of work to do. It's going to be a process. It's not just going to be, let's sign a few players and we're right back in it.
Okay, Bill wants to know about Napoli. Other than having great food, I don't know much about Napoli.
Yeah, that's the Coppa Italia. I need to scroll down to G on my sports book because apparently Coppa Italia is under G alphabetically.
What?
Yeah, don't ask me why. It's always in between Gambia and Georgia. I don't know why. Couldn't tell. Yeah, Napoli, you want what? You want to take the team total over 1.5? I mean, if you're getting a good line on that, I don't see why they wouldn't score 2 goals. They looked damn good against Juventus on the weekend. I watched that match 5-1. That was a big match for them.
5-1.
Yeah, they scored really early too. And Juventus, it looked like Juventus was ready from the start to hold them to a 0-0 draw. You could tell by the way Juventus came to play. They weren't planning on scoring in the game. I don't think they thought they had a chance. They literally shelled up.
Well, they're right.
Yeah, and it was Napoli putting on pressure for 20 minutes and eventually scored.
It's good to know they were right. They didn't have a chance. But, man, scoring 5, we talked about the 7 and the 5. I mean, my God, that takes a little bit of luck. I mean, come on, you're not going to score 5 goals on a elite soccer team without some luck. I mean, something's got to happen.
Yeah. So, Bill, I mean, if you're going to take the over 2.5 at that point, I might just take Napoli minus 1.5. You're getting it at minus 120-ish. And, they should be able to win this one by 2 goals. I don't think Cremonese has been awful in their last few games, but they don't score goals, which is an issue. They're going to be on the road here against a really good Napoli team. Obviously, check the lineup. That one starts at, let's see, what's the time?
An afternoon game?
Yeah, 3 o'clock. 3 o'clock. So check around 2:30. They do for cup matches at a half hour before you really got to be on top of it. But yeah, I mean, if they got I don't know if Osimhen's going to play and a few other guys, but they have a lot of talent on their team. As long as you're getting half a lineup, they should beat Cremonese no problem because Cremonese has got bigger things to worry about in the league.
One of the things that I was going to talk about and then realized that Sean was going to be absent today because he's on assignment, is that the ownership, not the Glazers, but the potential new ownership, was considering the possibility of tearing down and rebuilding Old Trafford, which is kind of tantamount to heresy. It's like saying we're going to rip out. Let's just tear down Fenway Park and build a brand new a new ballpark there. Bill's thinking maybe even over 2.5. That might be pushing it, Bill.
Yeah, that's why I was saying take the -1.5 at that rate. The thing with what is this? Hold on, give me 1 second. I just want to check if this is like the semifinal or something, because that's also I think
has something to do with it. Yeah,
is important to know just because. This is the round of 16, but yeah, see, like I look at it like Napoli, they're 10 points clear in the table, and they don't have Champions League for till February 21st, so still over a month away. I don't see why they wouldn't try to win this because they have a chance to win the cup and the league. They have a comfy cushion for, and considering it's been a long time since they won the league, I would think that I think this is going to be a year where they want to just dominate Italy, because who knows when they're going to be able to again with teams like Inter Milan and Juventus, and now AC Milan is also good again. So now's the time, because I also think they know when the summertime comes around, depending how deep they go into Champions League, teams are coming for their players. They're going to get fleeced for guys like Osimhen and Kvaratskhelia, all those guys. Like, they're going to get fleeced. You're going to hear the Man Cities, the PSGs, the Real Madrids come knocking for sure.
And it won't be that long for that to happen.
Yeah, that's why I think this is their window. Napoli knows they're good. This is their chance to just win everything in Italy this year. And then if they want to sell their team in the summertime, they can, unless they think they can actually retain their players.
I don't know if they can retain some.
Yeah, they can retain some for sure, right? But that's what I mean. Like some of these guys, like Osimhen is a star. This guy is. I could see some of the bigger, like especially if Mbappe leaves PSG, they'll try to go for Osimhen or something like that.
You think that? Well, we know he's going to leave, but you think they would go ahead and send it and do it?
What do you mean? Like,
do you think Mbappe would be? Would that be a landing space that Mbappe would want?
No, not Napoli. I'm saying like if he does leave, getting Osimhen from Napoli would be like perfect, because you're getting.
Oh, I see. Okay, I'm sorry.
You're getting a strong goal scorer to replace that presence, right? And it's a smaller market player, so it's not like you're going to be fighting with Real Madrid. You might be fighting with them, right? Because who knows? But
yeah, true.
Benzema might leave Real Madrid in the offseason. They might do a swap deal if Benzema wants to go back and live in France, right? Because he is French. Maybe they do a swap for Mbappe, Benzema. I don't know though, but it'll be interesting. That's for sure. There's going to be some big names.
Mbappe's a free agent.
Yeah, so they can't really do the swap.
Really pull that off.
He can just go, but they'll try. I think Benzema's a free agent too in the summertime, so it might be one of those things where it's not a swap deal, but they both just kind of like replace each other. It all depends. So Sean might be right when he says PSG is just going to start imploding.
He might be,
especially if Messi wants to stay there. Like he wasn't supposed to stay there past this year, and if he does, now you have an aging team that you're building you're an aging player, that you're building the team around, and that's not good, especially when you lose your 23-year-old superstar who you could have gotten like another 10 years out of. So it's tough. It's a tough one, that's for sure.
Amedeus, why don't you take and talk for a couple minutes about the 2 or 3 games in the next 2 days that you think are going to be exciting?
The 2 or 3 games the next 2 days. Let me just take a look here at the schedule. Yeah, so Thursday is going to be an interesting game. Man City and Tottenham. All of a sudden, you have Tottenham's had their issues, but Tottenham, they're not a very good team on the road, and Man City, they just lost the Manchester Derby. This is going to be a big match for Man City. They're slipping in the table behind Arsenal. This might be a get-right spot for Man City at home against Tottenham. That one's on Thursday, obviously, but I would say that's a pretty big match coming up, because Man City just like that's got to be a get right spot for them. If they can't beat Tottenham at home, then I think Man City's going to start to be in a bit of trouble there. I don't know, like something's wrong with them and PSG right now. And I can't really put my finger on it, but I think Man City's issue might be Erling Haaland.
Mhm.
And it might just be the same issue we're seeing with Liverpool. You know, he's not creating space for himself. When I watch these City games, like, yeah, he's a monster when he gets the ball, but when he doesn't have the ball, he's kind of just floating in the middle of the field and not really doing much until the play comes his way. Like, I think he's got to start doing more to get open, get touches. Like, same with Harry Kane. That's probably the guy. I've watched a few matches where he doesn't get a touch for the first 30 minutes, and it's like that's your guy who's going to score goals. You got to get him involved early. And then you look at some of these other teams like Fulham with their Mitrovic, and like Mitrovic is slow as hell. You're never going to get him on a breakaway, but he touches the ball. He gets his touches. He finds ways to get himself involved in the play. So, yeah, I mean, I think that's a huge match on Thursday. Man City and Tottenham, two struggling teams, obviously top-tier teams. Tottenham maybe not so much soon, but that's one I think they got to play. It's tough. In the next 2-3 days, there's not a lot of league matches. It's a lot of cup.
Yeah, and Bill, let me talk a little bit about the Houston game. This might be the best Houston team since the old Fight Slamma Jamma days. They're really, really good. They're playing Tulane tonight, and that game's being played in New Orleans and at the Devon Fieldhouse. Are you 6.5? Actually, that went down because Houston was a 10-point favorite with the over-under at 145. Last time they played, which was last year, Houston won by 20 points. Tulane's second in the conference. I don't think they're that bad. Yeah, I think you're right. I would. So you took them in the first half, -6 against Tulane. It's probably a good bet. It's Houston played South Florida the other day, and South Florida scared the living hell out of them. South Florida ended up losing by about 4 or 6 points, which they should not. That was this shouldn't be close. And I'm a graduate of South Florida. I can tell you, they should have been that close.
You're hard on your teams like me.
I'm just honest. I mean, I'd love to say they're great, but they're not. So
when I say Cliff is garbage, it's just honesty.
Much as I would love to say that South Florida is going to beat the hell out of Houston, it would be a lie. Number one. Number two, if it happened, that'd be a good day to go out and bet the lottery. But this Houston team, very resilient, very fast. I mean, this team can fly. They're playing at Tulane's barn, which is always Tulane's gym it can be 19 degrees outside Fahrenheit, and you'll be sweating in Tulane's gym. I mean, it's just like, doesn't matter what time of the year. That's a hot place to play. People are on top of you. It's a very close, very intimate gym. So there's that. But I don't think Houston can be intimidated, frankly. So, yeah, I think you're going to be safe there, Bill. I think you're going to be safe on that one with Houston-Tulane tonight, which is a good college basketball game. I was just looking. Kansas is playing Kansas State tonight.
Yeah, Kansas State. What a surprise they've been.
Oh my God! It's like they had first of all, they end up having a decent football team, both of them, and then you turn around and have this happen. You're like, dude, this is, what happened? Where did Kansas State come from?
Yeah, they won the Big 12 championship in football already, and they're coming for the basketball one now too.
Right? They're like, give me more. So the Wildcats out there in Manhattan are having themselves a good old time. Houston, I think, Houston, remember now, is only a year away from becoming a member of the Big 12. So There'll be Kansas State, Houston, and Kansas will all be part of that. That conference is going to be deep. They have Baylor, of course. Some really good basketball teams in there.
Getting BYU.
Yeah, BYU. It's funny, the new deal, the new TV deal that they're going to do is with ESPN and Fox, which is their prior television partners. And the way it works is ESPN gets the A game in football. They get first choice of games in football. But Fox went the other way and is taking the A game in basketball. So Fox is basically saying, okay, we want the basketball content. ESPN will take some basketball, but they'll take the lead role in the football content, in the football aspect of it. So it'll be interesting for the Big 12. But Houston, they're as good as anybody, is probably the best team right now in college basketball.
Yeah, well, I think they're number one, right? So
yeah,
that keeps fluctuating. Obviously, them, Purdue, Kansas, all.
Yeah, I will tell you a team right now. Do not sleep on UCLA.
Yeah, no, they're damn good. I know they lost, I guess, Juzang to the NFL, but they still have, or the NFL, the NBA. But they have he's sitting injured on the Jazz right now. I know because I see his name on the injury report every day of the season so far. But yeah, they still got what is that Jacques guy? They got a lot of solid players. Tiger Campbell. They got some good players down at UCLA.
It's not your dad's Notre Dame team, right? But man, I don't know. This one's perplexes me a little bit. FSU is not as good as the normal teams that that the Seminoles have had down there with they've been. I don't know. These are two middle of the pack teams for me. I will defer to you, Bill, if you've taken the Seminoles over the Irish. You're right; they're not the same Notre Dame team, but then again, Leonard Hamilton's had much better Florida State teams. So I don't know what to make of it, to be honest. So I'll defer to you in this one, Bill. If you think the Irish are going to have trouble against the Seminoles tonight, then, like I said, I'll defer to you on this one because I know for a fact it's not a good Leonard Hamilton team, and I have great respect for Leonard. BC beat them both. That's pretty much all you need to know there, Bill. If Boston College took both of them, that's all you need to know.
Yeah, so I don't know. It's a tough one. I don't think the ACC is really that great in general.
The ACC is having an identity crisis
in football and.
That's what I was about to say. They used to be the top basketball league, not so much anymore.
No, North Carolina slipping. You
could always count on Clemson and Florida State to be there. Year in, year out on the football side, and Clemson has become, a fringe championship. Don't get me wrong, Clemson's still a good football team, but I think, and we'll find out soon enough, but FSU hopefully is back on the football side.
We'll see. Clemson will be better without DJ though.
You think? Yeah.
Yeah.
You can't lose as many. And I think that what we're seeing is the same thing as with Alabama. You can't lose as many coordinators as Clemson and Alabama have lost without it doing something to.
Yeah.
Because these coordinators not only are good coaches, they are fantastic recruiters. And a couple years ago, 3 or 4 years ago, Clemson lost Jeff Scott, who was their offensive coordinator and their game day passing coordinator. They lost, over to Oklahoma. They lost, their defensive coordinator, who's now the head coach over there, whose name for moments has escaped me. And it's like Kirby Smart leaving Alabama, right? and Lane Kiffin leaving in Alabama. You know, you as good a coaches as Nick Saban is and as Dabo Sweeney is, you can't just keep losing their lieutenants and the people who they count on to go out and. I mean, Saban and Dabo will go out and recruit, right? But the way it works is these coordinators identify and pre-qualify these, and they'll say to Dabo, we're on the edge with one, okay? We think we can get them, but, you know, this is where you got to come in and close it, okay? So it's very likely that for instance, a Dabo Sweeney or a Nick Saban will go to a kid's house and sit down and talk to them, but it's only after their coordinators have been there 3 or 4 times to sell it. Because, you know, a Saban will see maybe 8 to 10 kids a year, and that's it. Because those are the 8 or to 10 kids he needs to get into his building. Yeah. Same thing with Dabo. But if your lieutenants out there aren't identifying these kids as quick, that's a problem. And now, sitting on the bench at Clemson or sitting on the bench at Tuscaloosa with Alabama, you know, with the transfer portal, you know, you've got guys going, well, you know, okay, fine. Do I really have to wait my turn, or can I go somewhere and play? And so it all works out, you know, in the end. What do we got here on? I take the Niners. I'm just not sold on Dallas. I'm just not.
Yeah, the Niners are too good. First of all, Niners are at home, and they've scored over 30 points in, like, I think 8 of their 10 home games, including this weekend. So
yeah, don't let the game last night with the Buccaneers fool you that Dallas is a good football team.
Yeah, like, come on. Me, Jim, and Sean could have put together a team that could beat the Buccaneers. Like,
I wish I wouldn't have had to say that, but yes.
Like, come on. We could go out there and catch passes. I could throw more passes than Brady did. Like, come on.
It was a tough night, and it's been a tough year.
Yeah, it's been a tough year for him, and that's the thing, right? Like, I think you hit it on the nail. He should have retired last season, and maybe he'll realize it. But I still think he's great. Still love Tom Brady, but man,
I mean, you know, it's like I said, when I covered Michael in the last 2 years when he was playing basketball for the Wizards, and you could see Michael Jordan play. I mean, you know, there was Michael Jordan was there, okay, but it wasn't vintage Michael Jordan. It was Michael Jordan, and you know, look. 2/3 of Tom Brady's better than 90% of the quarterbacks in the league. Okay. But when you don't have wide receivers who can catch the ball, and you don't have running backs who can get you some space. And to be honest, it was more this year, and this can be said for many teams. You win championships on the offensive and defensive line. Okay. Yes, quarterbacks are important. All of them are important. But if nobody's blocking for you, then you've got zero time to get rid of the ball. You've got zero time. You know, the entire Dallas team was 10 yards off was within a 10-yard radius last night. They didn't have to go 15, 20 yards downfield. I guarantee you that is not the case when they play the 49ers. Okay? Christian McCaffrey alone will cause them.
Yeah.
Because Christian McCaffrey can run, he can catch passes. You've got to account for him, not just, you know, with a linebacker is not going to stop Christian McCaffrey.
Yeah. Okay? And, you know, you mentioned, like, if they had a big problem, the Buccaneers, as not a lot of passes were more than 10 yards. And, you know, you can't do that on Dallas because, you know, Micah Parsons, the pass rush, right. They're going to get after you. But, yeah, I totally agree with you. There's going to be a different story in San Francisco next week.
I mean, you got McCaffrey and Kittle, right? Those guys not only can catch passes, and in the case of McCaffrey run, they can block. So you've got 2 offensive players who are still going to beat you with the ball, who can also block. So you've got the offensive line blocking. You've got a third-string quarterback who nobody knew. outside of the Big 12, is now, it's the second coming of Steve Young in San Francisco and playing outstanding football. And Dallas has to come there. The stat that stuck out to me last night on Dallas was they hadn't won a playoff game outside of Dallas since 1992. So now you're going to ask them to win 2. Last night they won 1 against a very, very, very mediocre Tampa Bay
team that finished 8-9. We seem to forget they won the division 8-9.
They got beat by Atlanta in the last game of the season. And Atlanta probably could lose to the University of Georgia. So probably better than 65-7, but still tough situation there.
Georgia could beat a handful of NFL teams. I think they actually
Kirby Smart, yeah,
pretty much an NFL team themselves. But that's their next move. Never mind teams moving to the Big 12 and the SEC. It's going to be Georgia to the NFL next.
We're taking Atlanta's place. Yeah. Phil, first of all, thank you for coming, because it's always good to have you around. You're a very smart, very knowledgeable guy, and we appreciate that. You know what? I was surprised about Tampa's defense too, except for the fact that they were on the field forever. Amedeus brought up a point that he looked at the clock and there was 10 seconds gone, and the Cowboys were off the field.
I couldn't believe it. I didn't even know you could run 3 plays in 10 seconds.
Yeah, normally that's your 2-minute offense. It's if you look at the time possession last night, I don't think Tampa Bay was on the field. Defense was on the field forever because those Dallas drives average 6-7 minutes, and that takes a lot out of you.
Yeah.
We were talking about how when Italy played the 0-0 draws, how much playing defense takes out of you. Playing defense against a very quick Cowboy team last night was the undoing.
And you know what? They weren't terrible. They stopped the Cowboys to 2-3, and now it's to start the game. But when your offense scores 0 points in the first half, at some point your defense is going to start getting demotivated. And they're going to come out and they say, even if we stop them here, are we going to score if we get the ball back? Right?
Well, Amadeus and Bill, if you look at the game last night, the Bucs game, right, on the defensive side for a moment, when you get behind, you start taking chances where you'll sit and go, okay, wait a minute, I'm going to jump this route and get the ball, and if we can get a pick 6 real quick, then that may turn the momentum in our favor. There was a play last night in that game. I think it might have been the fourth touchdown of the game.
I know the one you're talking about.
Where the guy was out of bounds. The guy in the end zone. He was out of bounds. But because the D-back reached out and was trying to intercept the pass, touched it. And since he touched it, so he was the first guy to touch it and not the second guy to touch it, the guy who was the wide receiver, who I think was who was the wide receiver was I forget who it was. It doesn't matter. But the Dallas wide receiver had actually gone out of bounds. His foot had gone out of bounds, but he came back in. So he caught the ball. Had that defensive player not sold out in an attempt to get the ball, then that pass doesn't count. But he sold out to get the ball, touched the ball barely, because you could just see the ball change direction just in the slightest of ways. But because he touched it, then that made the catch kosher. And so that was the kind of night it was for the Tampa Bay defense. They were just a second behind on picking balls off. They were a second behind on making a key tackle. They were a second behind everything pretty much that the Cowboys did, because they were over compensating to try to make a play. And when you do that, when you gamble like that, and lose, it usually costs you dearly. And that was what the Bucks were doing last night. They had no choice. If your offense isn't scoring points, you got to do something.
Yep.
And they got themselves in a hole. You know, they were 24 points down before they knew what the hell hit them.
Yeah.
And you know, and you were getting a lot of 3 and outs with the Bucks offense. It was just one of those games where the game can get away from you really quickly. And last night was one of those opportunities where the game got away from the Buccaneers quickly. And even though you may think, okay, maybe, just maybe, give me maybe we can get back in here. If you can't sustain and get at least, I think the longest for a while there, I think Tampa Bay kept the ball for 3 possessions one time in that first half. You know, and then they go down and attempt to get a touchdown, and then they throw a pick in the end zone. So
it was
that was the kind of night you're going to have. You're going to have a bad night when you get a pick in the end zone, and then comes out to the 20-yard line, and the Cowboys drive down, score a touchdown. And so instead of coming in and cutting a lead in half, which is what it would have been at that point, then you're now 3 scores down.
Yeah.
And you've got to, at that point, you have to take chances on defense. You have to take chances because they're 3 touchdowns down, albeit they missed the extra point. So there you go. You could have been 3 8-point scores away.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, man, you can't get that far down. It just puts your defense is just going to get crushed. Conversely, if you watch the game, the Jacksonville game, right? The Jacksonville defense did exactly what we were talking about. The Bucs defense doing. Only they got lucky enough to have some of those things go their way. So they did get some picks. They did get some turn the ball over on a fumble, I believe. Once.
Yeah, there's a lot of tipped balls.
Momentum went the other direction, and after the Chargers couldn't do anything wrong in the first half, they couldn't do anything right in the second half, and a lot of that had to do with the defense from Jacksonville making plays that if the same thing would have happened to them that happened to Tampa Bay, if they were missed, but they didn't. So it is what it is, right? It's you gamble, and sometimes you win, sometimes you lose. I say that on a show where people are literally gambling on the show as we speak. So you know what we're talking about here, boys and girls. So yeah, I mean, we were all disappointed, but life goes on. What are you gonna do? Yeah, thank you. You're right. I'm talking about CeeDee Lamb. You're absolutely right, Bill. I've got an old brain, which is sometimes will not process names quick enough for me. But CeeDee Lamb made that, and in his I think it was Sean Murphy Bunting that made the play on that, where he just barely. If he'd have gotten it's silly, but we're talking about fingers, okay? He touched it with his fingers and it flipped. Had Murphy Bunting, who has a hand 3 times my size, got his hand out there, he'd at least knocked it away. So what happens? He touches it. CD catches it to touch. CD's half out of bounds, but it didn't matter. He came back in.
Yep.
So if you have a night like that, given the rest of the stuff going on, you walk off the field, you're Sean Murphy Bunting, you look up and he's like, what do I got to do? I did what I could. It didn't work. So there are going to be those days, as the old saying goes. And for the Buccaneers, it was that kind of season. It went that way every freaking week, it seemed like. Hey,
Yeah, 8-9. 8-9.
In the immortal words of Denny Green, you are what your record says you are.
Losing season, losing in the playoffs.
Yep. check, please. So there'll be guys at One Buck Place today, across the street from the stadium, who will be cleaning out their lockers, and they will not be back in that locker room next season. And who they will be, we don't know. Whether Tom Brady will, where the Brady turns, that's another situation. And you think about this kind of year that Tom Brady had. He had a divorce, okay? I haven't gone through a divorce, thank God, but I know people who have. And anybody who says it doesn't affect them is nuts. He had the cryptocurrency thing go south on him, which that became a financial issue. So, so mentally, I can't see where he could be there every week with, focus. Probably the safest place for him, or the only place he really felt comfortable, was playing football.
Yeah.
Because at least for a couple hours, he didn't have to worry about, real life.
It's an escape almost.
Yeah. So maybe that was good for him, but whether or not Thomas wants to make a 46-year-old NFL player or not, I don't know. I hope, and I'm just saying this as a fan of the sport, I hope that he says no.
It's time to usher in a new era. We're seeing the Brock Purdy's, the Patrick Mahomes, the Josh Allen. Let the young guys have their shot.
I remember, and this is something that people couldn't believe at the time. Abe Pollin owned the Wizards when Michael Jordan was on the team. And basically, Michael was not only played, but he was also the general manager and head of basketball operations at the time. So at the end of the season, you meet with the owner, and they have a meeting and talk about what's going to happen for the next year. And I'll never forget, it was front page news in the Washington Post. I mean, it was like stop the presses type stuff. And you're listening to radio anywhere in D.C., it was a bulletin. Abe Pollin fires Michael Jordan. And it was like, what? How can you fire, one of the basketball's goats, right? And they interviewed Pollin about it, and he goes, I did it for his own good. He said he wasn't as good on the court as he thought he should be or could be. And to be honest, he wasn't a good executive. So sometimes you have to do something that is in the best interest of the franchise, but also is in the best interest of the guy who's running the franchise. So, there are people who literally stopped talking to Abe Pollin for years.
Wow.
Because he was the guy who fired Michael Jordan. Michael went on to Carolina, where he became a part owner in that routine. And if you recall, it was the Wizards had a number one draft choice, and he took that draft choice and made that draft choice Kwame Brown, who was a high school kid out of Georgia, who never really made any impact on the NBA other than being Kwame Brown, who everybody remembers the trivia question is possibly one of the worst draft choices in the history of first-round draft choices. But so look, Michael is Michael, and Brady is Brady. I don't know if he'll play again. I hope he doesn't. But if he does, God love him. I hope he doesn't get hurt.
Yeah.
Because as a fan, you want to see these guys go gracefully into the night, and some can, some can't. And we don't know whether Tom decided after last night's game, you know what, I don't need this. I'll take that. I mean, remember, he's got a $360 million contract with Fox. The moment he chooses to write on the note to the NFL, because you have to inform the NFL that you are retiring for.
Yeah, you gotta file the paperwork.
So you have to file the paperwork. It's no different than anything else, folks. Even they have to file.
And that was the big thing, is like when he announced he retired. I remember watching a sports show, and they were like, he didn't file the paperwork. This guy's not retiring.
I asked Rock Riley, who I'll see if I can get him on tomorrow. I asked Rock Riley, Rock, did Tom actually file the paperwork? He said, no.
Yeah.
He said, I just came out of Jason Light's office, and he said, no. And he said,
say
well, he's
whatever
not
you want.
retired. He says, I know he's not retired because, no paperwork.
Exactly.
So
Say what you want, but need the paperwork.
Right. So, it is what it is, right? But he didn't file the paperwork, and I guess what we'll have to do is watch whether or not he files the paperwork this time. Because retiring, he doesn't have to retire. He's a free agent for the Buccaneers, but doesn't technically become a free agent until March because that's when free agency begins. So technically, if Brady's going to retire between now and a little bit after the Super Bowl, it would have to come through paperwork through Jason Light's office. And I'm almost positive, although I will check this, that if you're going to retire in the NFL, you must retire through the final team you played for. Not that you're retiring from them, but you're retiring from football, and the last employer, if you will, that you had was the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. So if Tom, wishes to go out and do that, then you will. Quick note, Tom does a podcast every Monday with Jim Gray and Larry Fitzgerald. It might be worth your while. It's a free podcast. It might be worth your while to check out his podcast tonight because they tape it sometime later today. So Tom Gray, I'm looking up the exact title of the podcast, and you can get it, as the saying goes, wherever you get your podcast. It's with Jim Gray, and it's Let's Go with Larry Fitzgerald and Tom Brady, and you can get it. Apple Podcasts or wherever you get your podcast. So yes, Let's Go with Tom Brady, Larry Fitzgerald, and Jim Gray hosting, and they have one coming out. They have one coming out. They had one came out. Larry Fitzgerald did one yesterday. So my guess is Tom Brady will do the next one. So keep a lookout for Let's Go, and you'll be able to find it. So there you go. So Let's Go. Looks what you got there? Looks like the book's made a killing on tons of people betting on TB12 to come back. Not this time. Well, we'll see. I mean, 46 is not exactly the age that you want to be, running away from guys like Bosa and some of these crazy defensive backs. So we'll see. And 46 is old for golf. Yeah. And last time I checked, nobody hit you with golf. So I can't remember. Can you remember a 46? Amedeus and I are going to be talking tennis later. I can't remember a 46-year-old tennis player that was around for, they may compete in one or two tournaments. Maybe they played in the Opens, but I don't think, tour-wise, I can't remember somebody like that.
Yeah, no, it's hard to scrape the age of 40 in tennis because it destroys your knees. Any sport like that, squash, anything with a racket, basically, like it can destroy your knees pounding on the pavement. Like
that and your arms.
That too.
Yeah, you can get the old tennis elbow, but more to the point, your rotator cuff, because you're firing off a lot of serves. It takes a lot of toll on that muscles that, around that rotator cuff. I've had a rotator cuff, not replacement, but surgery, and I swear to God, I don't know how pitchers come back from a rotator cuff. I mean, it's a chore. Well, boys and girls, we have been around for a while, and it's about time we wrap this puppy up. And you guys have a wonderful day. Amedeus, it's been fun. Sean will be back tomorrow from being on assignment, and we'll touch base on a bunch of stuff. But thanks for joining us. Thanks for being very, very Brady on us today and talking to us about Tom and the rest of the gang. And we've enjoyed it. So for Amedeus, I'm Jim Williams saying, so long, everybody. We will see you tomorrow.